I can make a quick Instagram story again saying go live, go check out the live, you crazies.
Yeah.
Oh, one of my buddies is already waiting. He messaged me at like 6 in the morning. He's like, "Oh my god, when are you going live?" I'm like, "Holy shit, dude, just calm down."
Well, on that, if you guys are catching us on the replay, it is 7 o'clock on a Thursday night here in the Central Time Zone. So that means it's time for CarRguy and SixFan Show. And this week, I'm your host. I am Grant Tommy. I'm straight SixFan or SixFan of this operation. And that makes this guy over this direction.
I am Jason. I am the old car guy or the car guy of this CarRguy and SixFan Show. Guys, welcome so much for taking some time out of Thursday evening to be a part of the CarRguy and SixFan Show. Real excited to have our guest tonight, fellow YouTuber, fellow TikToker, fellow Canadian, all the way from Alberta. Alex, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
I'm Alex, more known as AK_Strem on every social media. I'm kind of a self-proclaimed shitboxer is the best way to describe it, because I don't build show cars. I build this. Mismatched trucks, rusty garbage. I'm not building it to be looked at. I'm building it to have fun.
Well, I appreciate that you turned that into a verb, Alex, shitboxer, and it's almost like a sport, right? So the Professional Shitboxer Association, I guess that would make all three of us. But before we get right into all of our questions for you, Alex, Jason, why don't you just kind of dip over to the chat and then talk about who's joined us so far?
Yeah, sure thing. So John Wilburn was the first, and he was quite questionable on how he was, and I responded to that he was a keener. So thank you, John, for being a keener for the CarRguy and SixFan Show. Also, everything is broken. Garage Prep and Life is in. Big Al is in the house, and we've also got, I think I saw Gary Mathis in there as well. And rolling down through, Will R has been in the chat. King Eric, the greatest mechanics, is here. And people are still strolling in. Will's Wheels. Thanks, guys, for jumping in and joining the chat tonight. 802 Garage is actually here, too. Thanks a lot, Aaron, for being here.
So, Alex, again, just your average shitboxer, as self-proclaimed shitboxer, as you say. So obviously the big build on your channel right now is what's behind you, the Rat S10, and so on my channel, my kind of tagline is offbeat hot rodding. So I'm very much like attracted to everything you're doing because it's different, and it's I think I like doing things a little left of center on when it comes to project cars and things like that, because I think it kind of echoes or harkens back to where the hobby all started, the post-World War II era, and people were just finding whatever they could, wherever they could, and throwing it in. So take us through, I guess, even from the very beginning, what the madness is of the Rat S10, and we'll just start with the power plant. The fact that you found a 3-liter inline 4 out of a boat. Why a 3-liter boat motor to turbocharge?
So it's a little bit of a rabbit hole in a way, because it was never predetermined to be like this. The truck started out as a 4-cylinder pickup truck. It was a 2.5-liter Iron Duke, and they're pretty garbage bone stock, to be honest. And I decided I wanted to turbo that, and that worked good. 3 years, I think I put 18 pounds of boost through it. It ran like a 14.89 quarter mile was the best I ever got out of it from stock, which I think was like 19 seconds in a red cab short box setup, which was pretty good. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do from there. The engine was going down on power, and I was researching into 4-cylinder GM stuff, found there was what's known as an SD4 Iron Duke. It's a Super Duty, part of Pontiac's funky race division. And those were unobtainable, super expensive, couldn't find parts. And then stumbled across my Facebook Marketplace one day was this 3-liter 4-cylinder. I'm like, no way, that's badass. And funnily enough, I had bought a valve cover from a swap meet that I thought was for the original engine, but it was a different design. The valve cover I bought was actually for the engine on Facebook Marketplace, and I had the valve cover for like 3 years. So I'm like, there's no way I'm not buying this engine right now. It was cheap, like $200. Sat in the old lady's garage forever, and I went and picked it up. It sat for a year, and then I moved out, and that's where it started.
We got some new names there in the chat as well. Bad Tree has jumped in there, I guess, stuff with Cletus, and Grimm's Auto Service, a Debacle 58. Thanks, guys, for jumping in. Alex, before we jump kind of into the whole social media part of what it is you're doing, tell us what kind of brought you into the car design, not necessarily, Rat 10, but in general, because I know you've got another little project out back, or a couple of them, I should say, but nevertheless, what got you into the car projects?
Mainly my dad. So I've been being taken to car shows since it was about this tall. My dad has an S10. Well, it's a GMC Jimmy, the SUV version, 2-wheel drive, that he built back in '96. Bright orange V8, super loud, and that was my favorite truck in the universe. And he just had me in the garage all the time, building stuff with him. Seeing that truck, like, I have friends in the garage, but you guys aren't allowed to touch this truck because it's the greatest thing in the universe. Stay away. That's how deep into it I was at that age. And then when I got into high school, my dad helped me buy my first vehicle, which is sitting outside in the snow, which is a GMC Jimmy. And then it started from there, and I just kind of took off.
Well, and I saw a post you had made. I don't remember which platform it was, because I follow you on more than one for sure. You're kind of going through a laundry list of your, I guess we'll call it the family tree of vehicles almost. And there were a lot of S10 or S10 based vehicles. So, and I think we all kind of do that, right, wrong, or indifferent. You fall in love with the platform at some point, and you kind of just, there's some familiarity there. But what's your favorite part, I guess, of the S10 platform?
I'd have to say the fact that it's accessible. They were everywhere. They still kind of are. The prices, I think, just starting to go up. Not necessarily like C10 square body price, but parts everywhere. And they're cheap. You want to go find one, you go spend $1,000 and get another truck. It's awesome. They're super entry level, super simple. There's not a lot to go wrong. Like, there's tons of aftermarket support. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, and they are, after all, GM's answer to the Ford Ranger. So, I mean, like, just like the Ford Ranger has so much available out there for aftermarket stuff, V8 conversions, whatever you want to do to them, the S10 is the same. And of course, we're talking basically first gen S10s here, essentially, before they went to the rounded, body styles in the early 90s or mid 90s. So again, we kind of tiptoed around why you like that particular platform. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the other projects that you have besides the Rat 10?
I mean, how in depth do you want? Because I can just like skim over them real quick.
Okay, let me rephrase that question. Tell us about your little rabbit.
The little rabbit?
Is it, or is it a Golf?
It's Canada was rabbit, US was Golf.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about that then.
So it started from high school. A buddy of mine who might be in the chat right now, his name's Jack. I don't know if he's in here yet. Him and another buddy of mine picked up, I think it was a 79 round headlight rabbit from this lady in the city. It was kind of garbage, but it was the first real car that we ever wrenched on together. And it never saw the road. I think they drove it once. It was super sketch. It didn't have any brakes, hardly moved. And it ended up going to the scrapyard. But it was my first real vehicle that I built with friends. It was fun, and I fell in love with it. And I found mine from a family friend who ran an off-road park way outside of the city. And I tried to buy the car about 6 years ago. He didn't want to let it go because it was his son-in-law's car. And finally, I think 6 years later, we bumped into him again after not seeing him. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I almost sold that car." And I'm like, "Oh really?" He's like, "Yeah, it was like $200, but he didn't want to take it." I'm like, "I'm coming with a trailer tomorrow. Let's go."
So the memories that you built, it's the first car you were wrenching on, and I know there's some other builders out there that VW is kind of the gateway drug, you might say. But what's the eventual plans with the Rabbit from here on out?
It's a little bit back burner because of this mess and other trucks that are back there, but I'd love to. It's currently on Airlift Performance airbags. Nothing super special, just manual paddle switches. I have a full body kit I bought for it. It's a Mark I Cabrio Clipper body kit that probably doesn't fit. I have different wheels to put on it, And then I want to do an engine swap because the factory 1.7 CIS continuous injection is absolutely trash. It makes like 70 horsepower and it's super slow.
Look, that's the first time this season that I've actually started talking with the mute button on. So one of the things I'm drawn to the Rabbit specifically is if you don't know, I've got myself an 87 Yugo, and very similar in size as well as looks. You know, the two-door, mine's a two-door hatchback. So do you have any plans for that car in the future to bring it to a better form of glory than what it already is?
That's a tough one because it's got lots of rust holes in the floor and I don't like bodywork. So to really like restore it properly, it needs full floors. I think some of the fenders need touch, some stuff in the back. It's just as much of a shitbox as anything else I own. It looks good on the outside, but it's pretty bad.
So back to the Rat S10, we talked about the boat motor, the Super Duty Iron Duke, and but that's not the only thing that makes that build unique. You also have underpinnings from a Corvette. So why don't you take us through, Alex, like all of the Frankensteining going on with Rat S10 at the moment?
You just want like a general overview of the trash?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so there was always this idea discussed by me and my dad. He had a red cab short box truck right when I was starting the whole Rat 10 thing like 4 years ago. And he's like, oh, I want to build a track 10 and I want to get a Corvette rear end and put it in the back and make it like a race truck. He ended up selling that truck and the idea just kind of hovered until we found this C4 Corvette for, I think it was $4,900 Canadian, which is dirt cheap. It was a 1991 Tuneport 6-speed Corvette, which is actually kind of hard to come by. And those cars specifically came with a Dana 44 independent rear suspension, which is big, beefy, 8.5-inch ring gear. The 6-speed cars got better gears. And we found the car cheap enough that we knew tearing it apart to take the parts we wanted, we could still sell the rest of the car to make money back, which actually is what happened. I still have the rear end, the transmission, and I've made profit on the car. So I'm net into those parts, nothing, which is pretty cool. And then I just kind of continued the idea of track 10 from there and built it into Rat 10. So really I could take Rat 10 on a track and it would be pretty good. So that's kind of the plan, hopefully, if we get there.
So as we kind of dive into some of these projects, now one of the things that I guess I found you on YouTube long ago, about maybe 8 or 9 months ago. And then all of a sudden I got onto TikTok and I'm thinking, I've seen this guy before. I've seen that truck before. So one of the things that that you're known for is your TikTok presence. I mean, you're you're well over 200,000 followers. I haven't checked it lately, but what's your secret? You don't have to tell me, but what's your secret that's making AK Strem on TikTok blow up? Like what do you think it is?
We've had this exact discussion before and I've tried to pinpoint it. I really can't, because I started TikTok as just kind of a joke. Like I think a lot of people do. This was 2 years ago in March is when I started. I was still living at my parents' house and I was just finishing the cab swap on this. And I'm like, this is driving me nuts. I need a way to entertain myself. I'm like, TikTok, sure. I'll post some stupid videos and see how they do. And a few of the first ones I posted actually didn't do too bad. I think the first one I did that did really well was just me stabbing a 2x4 into my clutch pedal and the bench seat. And this is how you bleed your clutch by yourself or whatever. And that one did really good initially. I did a couple other simple ones that I didn't put a lot of effort into, just recorded it, posted, and they did okay. And then from there, I think what really blew the project itself up was a video I posted making a catch can out of a mason jar and steel wool, which actually ended up terrible. It worked, but the lines were too small. They choked my PCV out and basically ruined the turbo. That video got like I think it's at 3.2 million views now, and I really don't have an explanation for it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is obviously the big A word, the algorithm. Everybody likes to talk about that. All these different platforms have different ways of picking things up, sweeping them through, and getting them in front of eyeballs. But yeah, I guess that's what this show's partially about too. Is we want to try to find growth hacks and tips and tricks and things like that. And as you mentioned, sometimes you can try to analyze it as much as possible, and it's still are kind of left scratching your head. But if you kind of take the same conversation over to the YouTube side, what are some things you found that have really helped you grow on the YouTube platform?
That's kind of hard to say too, because a lot of my YouTube growth has come directly from TikTok. Like if you look at my analytics, I think most of my followers have come from an outside source, and it's like TikTok.com, which is kind of a given because I promote it so much. And I think when I started my YouTube channel initially I had like a 250,000 following, so it kind of gave it an initial boost. As far as like actual YouTube growth, it's been pretty damn slow. Like nothing crazy. I watch that line like a hawk for new viewers specifically from YouTube, and every once in a while there's a little spike, but not much. I don't think I've really hit the YouTube algorithm properly.
Well, and I do stand corrected because I just went back and checked your followers. You're at 567,000 followers on TikTok. Like that's outstanding.
That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like you put that into big number terms, and that's over 500,000. So one of the things that we talked with Aaron last week with with one of his growth hacks was directing people to your YouTube to help over there, because obviously, yeah, if TikTok is paying you, it's certainly not paying you like YouTube does. So if we can get some of this audience over here to follow me over there, and I started doing that a couple times, and I think it was one of your videos that I watched when you said, if you want to see more on this build, with all your hyper excitement like you do, head over to my YouTube channel and watch this YouTube or watch the full video. So I started doing a little bit of that in my TikToks, hoping that it's going to drive some traffic. But I mean, like you're at 567,000. I'm at like 3,200. Sorry, not 32,000, 3,200 followers. So the idea between social medias, no matter what you're doing, is you're branding yourself. One of the things before we even had you on the show was we reached out asking you for a logo so that we could kind of get you out there and get things, get your brand out there. You don't really have one other than the truck itself.
I mean, so, I do, I don't. I just haven't really like published it yet. The draft for it is on my door. I can probably show you. That is the official draft of the AK Strem brand. It's simple. Like the I'm not gonna be able to do this. It's my initials, just AKS, AK Strem, all combined into one fluid kind of thing that you can either write out or draw out simply. And it's simple. I didn't need to overcomplicate it, except if you actually delve into my brain and look at it properly, it's geometrically symmetrical everywhere. I put too much effort into it, to be honest, but it's just not out there.
So I guess where I was going with this whole thing, this little bit of a story that I was got off on a tangent with, was, how come you haven't branded yourself yet?
I don't know how. I genuinely don't, because I've had a few people be like, "Oh, you should start yourself as a business or whatever, and try this, try that." And I'm like, "Okay, yes, but a lot of that, like for example, merch, it all costs money. Which having a house, 5 vehicles, I don't currently have a lot of."
Well, again, it's all about it's a learning curve, no matter how you're looking at it, right? Whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever the growth is. I think where I was going with that is part of what we're doing with this show is not just having guests over so that we can introduce them or introduce you to them, but vice versa. And one of the things that we want to be able to help you with is if there's any questions like that, maybe there's something that we can kind of help you with as far as getting either a logo kind of put together and or some merch put together and or whatever. So that's some of the things that we tried to do with Grant and I. Is we don't know everything, and don't think for a second that I'm telling everybody that we do. We're just learning as we go too. So some of the things that we might be able to help you with might be a logo and a merch as a side hustle to possibly or potentially more revenue for you. That's all.
Right.
Well, and I was going to piggyback on the conversation, just say that just because you haven't officially created a logo as soon as like Jason or I did doesn't mean like there's no right like structure to it. There's no right like, hey, you've got to do this first before you do the next thing. And so I think you're an interesting case study because like, hey, you didn't need a logo to get to 567,000 followers on TikTok, and that's pretty impressive. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at is like what Jason was saying. We can learn from you. Like, obviously, it can be done without a logo, and so people shouldn't get hung up on. Well, I don't want to get started in this because I don't have a logo. You know, and that's what the show's about too. Is just encouraging people. Like, no, just get out there, be yourself, and do your thing, and figure it out along the way, each and every step. So, yeah, I'll echo what Jason said. We're more than happy to help share. Fill in some blanks on things you don't know as well. So,
and for anybody else, that's out there watching this, whether it's live or after the fact, if you're thinking about getting into YouTube or you're into YouTube and you've got small subscribers or big subscribers and you haven't jumped on the merchandise, like obviously tonight I'm wearing a t-shirt of mine. Tonight Grant's wearing one of his. The idea is that once you get to the point where you can brand yourself or create something that you want to share. I use Spreadshirt. I think Grant does as well. There's Teespring. All those companies out there is a free account to create. All you got to do is upload your image and they'll put it on a shirt for you and print to order. They look after all that. Doesn't cost you a cent. In fact, they'll pay you for each order. So keep that in mind as you guys grow with your channels and as things move on and you start developing a broader base of followers on any social media. That is one of the benefits of branding, is that when they see your logo or your name, it's very quickly associated with something.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, like I think your channel's like in the 15,000. I think that 10,000 is the threshold that YouTube lets you just actually have a merchandise ribbon in every description. Like it auto loads that in. I'm not there yet, but that's definitely one of those things. I mean, I don't sell a ton of t-shirts myself. I need to do a better job of promoting it. But yeah, like Jason said, it's really no cost to you. It's all house money. It's not a great buyback rate, really. If you did it on your own, if you bought in bulk and stored them and shipped them out yourself, like you'd make more money. But as you mentioned, 5 cars in a house, like who has time for that? So
it's a whole lot of work.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I guess we've kind of tipped over to the tips and tricks side of things, or what have you learned so far? What if anybody hasn't started on the TikTok side of things? What's your advice to them that, for starting a brand new TikTok account in 2022?
You gotta be unique. You gotta be slightly controversial. If you can get people talking, get them thinking about something, it's gonna be a good video. And I've been able to prove that to myself because I started what I call a shitpost account, just junk Snapchats and whatever else just to throw on there because if you just post like generic low effort videos, they're probably not going to do good. If you have a structure to it, if you have something to talk about in it and something that confuses people, it's probably going to do okay, even starting from a new account.
Here I go again with my mute button. That's some of the things too, is that a lot of people, one of the pieces of advice that Aaron gave last week was simply just to be posting. In a lot of cases, you don't have to have any particular topic, but just post something. If you're doing, people will watch, even if it's only a few hundred. You never know. With their algorithm, it may turn into several 100,000. I like the controversial thing because today, in today's society, people are so easily offended. But you don't want to be getting, like you said earlier, we don't want to be getting into politics or religion or nothing like that. But you can also tiptoe around that very, very slightly. And if it's you're talking about a car, if you're a Chevy fan, Dodge fan, Ford fan, all it takes sometimes is just simply stating Chevy's the best, and then go on and tell why you think that might be, and then you're going to get all the Dodge and Ford guys hating on you in the comments. But guess what? At the same time they're hating on you, they're probably clicking that follow or that plus sign, right? So that is one thing. With your 500,000 plus followers on TikTok, that's probably where you get the most hate or the most trolling or the most whatever. How is it that you handle some of that stuff when you're dealing with it? Do you handle it or do you ignore it?
I've never really been one to just like instigate the hate, because to be brutally honest, I haven't really gotten much. The only hate I ever get is if I directly show something welding related. That's a big thing on TikTok right now, is welding. Everybody hates your welds. They're garbage. But you do get the random person in your comments. There's actually one just today. Some guy commented on a video telling me that I'm purposefully dragging out my series and I'm barely doing anything in a day. That one struck a nerve because I made a full TikTok calling him out. He since blocked me, deleted his comment, all the above. But I don't get where the entitlement comes from. Like, I'm a dude building stuff and the internet is there. I'm not doing it for you. I'm just doing it. I don't like it triggers people for some reason, and I don't understand it.
My favorite part about those commenters, typically, like 9 times out of 10, is then when you click on their account, you find they have 3 posts or something, or 0. Yeah. And it's like, hey man, love to see the progress going on your build too every day, and it's just like, well, and then you find out they probably have some debilitating disease, they're like, well, I actually have polio and I can't get out in the garage. And you're like, yeah, so just, how about you just save the comment next time, buddy, But,
they take it back too, or they backpedal, or they try to be like, oh no, I didn't mean it in this way. It's like, okay, then why did you post it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, what you do find, and that is the gratifying part about this, is, and the reason why I finally just got off my ass to start building the project car was you come up with all these excuses why I can't do this, can't do that, and then you just don't do it. So then you live vicariously through other people's builds, right? And so like it is actually on this end of it, like it is. I know that for like every one viewer that's a car guy, there's probably like 10 who are just aspiring car guys, or just too afraid to actually get into it. So it is like, it is an honor to do what we do in some aspects, but like, man, it's just, like I said, there's 10 to every one that just frankly aren't people who are gonna actually wrench on their own cars. And so typically that's where those comments are coming from, and it just kind of sets you back. So I think we've all been there.
Yeah, and I've just reading in the comments there's a couple of guys that are basically simply saying that haters are going to hate. And if we were simply doing YouTube to be criticized, we never would have picked up the camera, because that's what YouTube is all about. There's, you take that ratio that you had, there's 10 to 1 haters in some cases, or someone that's willing to troll or pick up the keyboard and start typing something that just was certainly unnecessary.
Well, I just want to clarify. I don't think they're all haters. I think a lot of people are watching it. It's their entertainment. It's things they wish they could do but can't for whatever reason. Excuse, mental block, actual physical thing. Like I had one follower reach out to me at one point, and he actually does have like MS, and he's like, man, I used to love to wrench, but I physically can't. So I like watching your stuff because like I just can't crawl under a vehicle like otherwise someone has to come pull me out, kind of a thing. But it's just the natural byproduct of the niche we're in, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, you see, too, the one thing that a lot of people forget is your haters are still generally one of your biggest fans. Like, hate is not straight up negative. They're hating on you for a reason. And if they're returning haters, they're coming back to watch you. Like, they didn't just pop up on one video and just like, oh, you suck. What are you doing? They keep coming back to see what you're doing because they want to find something to criticize. they're watching you just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, haters are viewers, and that's what and that's kind of what the YouTube gig is all about, is the views. I mean, if you're, we've asked several guests over the last 6 seasons, why do you do YouTube? And 90% of them say, well, I was already doing this stuff anyway. I just decided to pick up the camera and show everybody what I was doing, and show them my mistakes and show them my lack of skill or whatever it happened to be, right? So before we get into the next question, guys, if you're in the chat and you're watching this live and you have a question for Alex that we haven't covered yet, go ahead and leave them in the chat, because we're going to get to a few of them as the show goes on. Looking forward into the future, what let's assume that tomorrow Rat 10 is where you want it to be and it's done. What do you see in the future for AK Strem on YouTube / social media, whatever?
Whatever I buy next, to be honest, or whatever comes out of the backyard first. Because as I said, there's 5 total, so there's always something. I don't necessarily have a plan. Like I tried to make a structure to it in one of my most recent videos here, and I'm probably going to stick to it. But you never know. You're scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, you might just find some beat up old pile of junk for $500 that takes priority. I think for me, I'd love to just keep doing things like this. Like I'm just a guy with tools. Anyone can do this. I don't need to spend 5-6 figures on a build like some of these big YouTubers are doing. It's unrelatable to a point, and that's, I think, most of the stuff you see on YouTube now is just guys throwing their wallets at vehicles, just building crazy stuff. You don't need money to have fun. I'm into this truck for less than 5,000 Canadian.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that, because that's a lot of what I want my channel to be about. And when I was building my Fairmont, I was pretty upfront that it was never meant to be a car I was building for keeps. It was always one that, like, I look at it as it's my tuition, right? So this is my first project car. I haven't done a lot of stuff. This is the first time I'm doing it. Mistakes are going to be made, but this is just the cost of learning, right? And I used to field that question all the time. So what's next after Project Low Fairmont? It goes back to the people who just want to live vicariously through you, so they're excited for the next thing. And like, you never know what life's going to throw at you. And so I would answer it very similar to what you did, Alex, was, well, whatever the market provides. Like, I'm not going to, like, I'm looking, my car, that next car has got to have certain criteria, like I held the Fairmont to when I bought it. But then lo and behold, I found my high school truck, found me actually last year, and I bought it back. And so now plans have changed. And so I don't understand why people are so obsessed with, I guess it's the society in the world we live in. It's instant gratification. Everybody just wants to know. I want to know now, kind of a thing. But it's like, man, there's many things you can't control about life. Yeah. So, I guess before we start getting into the chat questions, Alex, the one I'll finish up with on Rat S10 was just the transmission tunnel build. You kind of took a unique approach to that. So tell us what possessed you to take said approach.
It just kind of happened. So the floor, I had a hole about this big, and I was looking at it, and I had chunks of sheet metal. This is a little big, this 1/4 inch plate, but they were about this size, a little bit bigger, and I was going to bend them to form to fit this hole that I cut. And then I started cutting more out of the floor, and I'm like, that's a rather large hole. And I was sitting in there, and I think one of my videos, I'm sitting there looking at the hole, and I stare from the cab straight across to, in the corner here is my garbage can. I'm like, that's got a very convenient size. It's a Shell grease keg. Like, I don't know what size it is. I can't read it right now, but I took a measurement of the hole. It was like 12 inches. The grease keg was 14. I'm like, that's perfect. I cut it in half, put it over the hole, and it fit. It was perfect.
So when you did that TikTok, was it really that like instant that you looked across the room and saw that and said, I'm going to use that barrel as my transmission tunnel? Because when I watched that TikTok, I'm thinking to myself, I think he just clued into that. That's going to work.
That's 100% how it happened. It wasn't necessarily like the the exact moment on video. I can't remember, but it was, I made it seem exactly like it was, because I was just in the garage doing whatever. I'm like, that looks very, very conveniently shaped.
Well, we'll start going into the chat, and the first question for you, Alex, comes to us from Everything's Broken Garage, and he wants to know if you'd ever consider doing a collab with Zip Ties and Bias Plies or Few Berta Boys.
Honestly, I would love to just like meet the guy in person, because watching his videos, he's just unfiltered out there doing whatever the hell he wants. It's quite entertaining, but probably don't watch it in front of your Christian parents, because it's not a good idea. I'd love to go up there and see some of the junk that he has, if that ever happens, because I think he lives like 5 hours away from me. He's a local Albertan, which would be pretty cool.
Well, and part of YouTubing and doing, just out there different stuff is the collaborations and getting to meet other guys and see what they're doing, helping them work on what they're doing. Have you done any collaborations yet with your channel, either on YouTube or TikTok?
YouTube, no. TikTok, kind of. I was in a few like what do you call them? Like For the Boys videos, just like Hype Garage, I think is one. A guy named Cho FDM messaged a bunch of us, and he wanted little clips of us like dancing on our truck or with our vehicle, and then just some other funny ones. But other than that, I haven't done any like dedicated collabs. I'd love to go out and meet people. The biggest problem right now is a lot of the people I know are in the States, and with the whole world situation right now, meeting people from other countries is not exactly the easiest task.
Yeah, and we did just get a question in the chat and wanted to know where you're located. So you are in Canada, of course, as you just mentioned, and more or less the Edmonton area. Don't need to get more specific than that, but so yeah. Well, so I guess let's just keep on the collaboration topic. Do you have any, outside of the ones that were mentioned, any ones you would dream of, or who you would, let's just say, and let's limit it to Canada for now, like, since, who knows when we can start going back and forth over the border. Who would you dream collab with at the moment in Canada?
Besides us. I mean,
I'd love to meet you. I do want to do like a cross Canada trip, so you'd definitely be on the radar. Oh God, I usually have people in the brain, but as soon as you get asked about it, it's like I don't remember, because there's some friends out in BC I want to go meet. What's his name? Boosted Lifestyle is like 4 hours away from me. He's been pretty big as of recent. I don't know what he's like for collabs and whatnot, but it would be cool just to, drive this pile of junk up there just to get beaten in a drag strip by an 8-second Mustang. We go further east to Manitoba. One of my buddies, his name is Duval Builds, has an LS. Oh God, I'm going to botch it. It's an LS3 swapped. Maybe it's more LS6. It's basically Corvette drivetrain in a Mark II Jetta. It's rear-wheel drive converted. It does crazy burnouts. I think it makes like 550 horsepower. It's ridiculous. He's a guy that I told needs to come into my garage and do a smoky burnout in front of all my neighbors.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh no, that's kind of all the Canadians that I know, really.
Well, and one thing that I'm finding too is the more I create, the more life goes on, and the more that I'm doing, I really have a hard time staying in touch and staying up to date with all the current videos with everybody, because you're too into doing your own and whatnot. But I am slowly stumbling upon more and more Canadian content than ever before, and I try to make sure that I at least get in and comment once in a while here and there on people's videos. There are a ton of Manitoba YouTube creators.
There's loads.
Yeah, there's out there, and I think if you really started following a lot of these guys, you'd realize that there's probably more YouTube content creators outside of Ontario than probably inside of Ontario. And that's saying a lot because, 50% of Canada's population is in Ontario and Quebec. So I don't know if you're following any questions there, Grant, because I can't pop them up. But
if you saw one, let me know. I know earlier stuff with Cletus asked the question, but I think he was to the rest of the chat and is kind of promoting his Volvo LS build that it's kind of going to be a group build coming up in April, I believe it is. But so Cletus, if you wanted us to ask that question to Alex, please in the chat let us know. But, I didn't see any others. Outside of, again, Shopcat Industries, he was the one asking about location, and he mentioned where he lives. This means nothing to me, but
Sherwood Park, I believe.
I don't know if I've ever heard of Shopcat, but it is nice to know that there's locals in the chat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of questions, but guys, go ahead and throw some questions in there. We got lots of time. We should be able to get to everybody's question tonight. I guess one thing that I did want to ask you too is it's kind of outside of YouTube. It's outside of social media altogether. We talked briefly about it, and you don't have to give any names. But some people usually are curious as to what us YouTubers do in real life that keeps us going, that pays these bills, that pays for these builds. What is it that you do for a living that helps keep up with the build on Rat 10?
So I am by trade a heavy duty mechanic, or I guess heavy duty technician, I guess they call it now because it's so fancy and whatever. We're a heavy duty dealership. We sell brand new construction and forestry equipment. I think we do like forklifts and stuff too, which is pretty fun. So, I mean, I work on stuff literally the size of this room at work, and then I come home to do this because I wasn't going to do automotive as work because it's my hobby. I think I just get too sick of it.
I think there's something to be said about that. Like, the last thing you want to do when you come home from work is things that are a lot like work. And so I think having that, having a little bit of that break for sure would be vital. So stuff with Cletus I guess he was asking it of you, Alex. He wanted to know wrong one. That's how I know I'm getting old. I was wondering what you thought about a 6-liter LS in a Volvo 960 wagon, I guess.
960, is that still one of the boxy Volvos, or were they starting to get round?
I think that's a boxy one.
Yeah, anything boxy it's good on my list. LS and probably something that weighs like 2,500 pounds. How can you go wrong? That thing's going to be a riot.
It's going to be the safest LS powered anything since it's a Volvo.
I'm a little bit of a controversial person when it comes to LSs too, because I tell a lot of people that I don't like LS swaps, but it's not because I don't like LS swaps. It's because everybody's doing LS swaps. And the number one question that I get asked about this truck is, why aren't you putting an LS in it? And I tell them, because you just asked me to.
Yeah. I love that, Alex. You can go ahead. You're already inducted in the CarrGuy and SixFan Hall of Fame just for that standpoint alone, because that is us. There's no way to debate it. Like they are simply the best air pumps out there, LS motors. But we've seen it in everything under the sun, so like I don't need to see it anymore. Like just somebody else go pioneer something and do something different and be unique for freaking once.
Yeah, everyone's saying the same thing about the Yugo. Put an LS in it. It's like, okay, fine, but no. There was a question out there somewhere. I can't remember who asked it, but the question was: Would you ever put anything bigger for an engine in Rat 10?
I think I did see that one scroll through. It's a thought I've had. This might disappoint a lot of people in some ways, but let me finish before the shitstorm starts. There will never be a V8 in this truck, ever. Rat 10 will be anything but a V8 truck. Bigger engines? Absolutely. Like, the next thing I have in mind is like, I don't know my inline sixes. Any big inline six from like a Chevy full-size truck, it would be a little long for this engine bay, but I've seen guys run turbos on them into like the 400 or 500 horsepower range, and it's just weird. Apart from that, like the V6 that's in my Blazer, the 4.3 V6, that is going to come out eventually I'm going to go back on my statement here. I'm probably putting an LS in it for daily drivability. And I was going to stick that V6 into Rat 10 and then put twins on it out of the hood like it was before. And that would have been fun.
Yeah, so you mentioned, of course, I'll always support an inline six build as straight SixFan. But yeah, if anyone in the chat's interested in that, an upcoming guest here on CarrGuy and SixFan Show, we do have Nivolac 57, who is the 4.2 Atlas Motor King builder on YouTube right now. So make sure you're tuned in. Continue to tune into our show. It does alternate every other week between Jason's channel and mine. So next week it'll be on Jason's channel, but that is coming up. And so Alex, maybe you'd even be interested in that one. But yeah, 2JZs, BMW's got a slew of good inline sixes too. So yeah, I think and they're actually inline sixes are kind of hot right now. They're kind of making a comeback, really.
And Mercedes makes a great diesel coming to old CarrGuy soon, maybe.
What I've seen a lot of guys using actually is like the Jeep 4-liter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Newcomer Racing is a channel. Yeah. There's a builder. I think they're in Tennessee. Newcomer Racing, and they got I think they crested 800 horsepower with a Jeep 4-liter recently. But everything is Broken Garage was talking about your twin turbo idea 4.3, and so it'd be like a poor man's Cyclone. I love that.
Yeah, pretty much. Funnily enough, he mentions poor man's Cyclone. That's technically one of the projects I have planned, except Typhoon, because my Blazer, it's an 88 4x4 Chev Blazer 2-door. I'm converting that to a Typhoon when I have the time to do it.
Let's see here. We're just looking through. Yeah, so it was Big Al Bolio that was asking about the bigger engine. He didn't mean V8, I guess. He just wanted to clarify that.
Oh, yeah. Well, not that I think he meant V8. I just had to address the fact that if I'm going bigger, there will never be a V8 in this truck. That's just kind of the ground rules. But anything bigger, like, yeah, I'd put a V10 or 12 out of like a Jaguar or something in here before a V8.
Well, I was thinking about it right before we went live. Your truck, your Rat S10, to me it's sort of like if you took Roadkill's muscle truck, scaled it down, but then took the thought of the Rot Sun and married those two together. I feel like that's what Rat S10 kind of is kind of that.
I'm laughing at that because you quite a bit hit the nail directly on the head. This truck is 100% completely inspired by the Rotson. That first initial video I watched sometime in high school, they slapped a 4.3 in it, put a Power Stroke turbo on it, and I was blown away when a stock 4.3 made almost 500 horsepower on who knows how much pounds of boost. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And that's the entire reason why I turboed the stock engine is because of Roadkill. That was the entire inspiration.
Well, see, my big thing is with anything is I've never owned a vehicle, well, besides the little Hyundai Veloster that my son has that my wife used to have. Never really owned anything with turbo in it, or I've never turboed an engine before, and that's part of what we're going to be doing with the Yugo when we ever get to that point. But I mean, you could throw a stock modern day engine in that thing and double or triple the horsepower it's got right now. Like, so it wouldn't take much to get your power to weight and have a fun little car naturally aspirated. But I do want to, dangle my toes in the turbo waters, so to speak, to get that learning curve, because like I said, I've never been there. Is this the first that you've ever dealt with the turbo? I mean, obviously you had the turbo before, but like with the Rat 10?
This was my first introduction into turbos, which is another reason why I did it. It was the learning curve. I tell a lot of people, they're like, oh, how do I turbo my S10? And I'm like, don't do what I did. It was dumb. The first thing I tell them after that is I'm like, put a turbo on it, but buy a boost reference carburetor, because trying to tune factory stuff in the 80s is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I've seen enough people do the turbo. I've never done it, but I own a turbocharged EcoBoost Mustang, but I've never put one on myself. I've seen a lot of people who do the turbo builds and then they're all gung ho about, no, I'm doing a blow through carb setup, and then 4 out of 5 of those people end up going to like a Holly Sniper kind of version of EFI, and I'm like, to me, again, this isn't a street smart thing because I haven't done it, like I said, but a book smart thing. I feel like if I ever do it, like I am not going to. I can check my pride at the door. I don't need a carbureted turbo setup. Like, it's
if you can afford it, like standalone systems are the way to go. But for guys like me who don't have a big wallet, so many people are so quick to say, well, just put a Holly on it. I'm like, I cannot afford to put a Holly on this. I don't think you understand. Everyone's like, oh, you're using that GM TBI. It's so garbage. I'm like, cool. Do you want to buy me a Holly? Because I can't afford it.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like when I first started looking into it is, you got to have boost controllers, or I'm not sure of the term. Don't quote me on this stuff, because again, I'm a turbo nerd, or not a turbo nerd. I just don't know anything about them. Noob. That's what I was trying to get at. So yeah, if you're doing fuel injection on a stock engine, you got to have boost controllers. You got to, they talk about, tearing the engine down and re-gapping the rings or this or that and all this stuff. It's like, well, how much boost do you plan on putting through it? And I'm like, I don't know. And what can I get away with safely that I don't have to tear a motor apart? And the common reference to that is probably 5 to 7 pounds. You're probably fine. Anything over that, and you're looking at a total engine build, purpose built for a turbo. So I guess that's what we're looking for when it comes to the Yugo with a turbo engine build. But I might be leaning on you a little bit. I know that you kind of are dealing in the naturally or the carbureted with no fuel injection, but I might be leaning on you for a little bit of experience on that too.
I may not be the most helpful person in the universe. Like, I know how it all works and I can tell you the basics of what it is, but when it comes to like tuning specifics and whatnot, it's entirely dependent on what you have and what you're dealing with. Like I said, boost levels, the engine you're doing, like compression ratios, everything. It all goes into it.
Yeah, and I totally understand him, sensitive to the comment you mentioned, Alex, about like, look, I'm not made of money here, so like it just we're gonna try it this way, and it just is what it is. But I guess I'm the same way. Everything's a budget build on my channel, and I'm super cheap too. But I'm also the type guy, I don't want to do something twice, and I've seen enough people do it twice that I'm like, I guess for me, if I'm ever gonna do it, it's like just save up the money till you can afford the Holly thing, because it's like I'm not gonna do it twice. But that's kind of where I was coming from with that comment. I didn't mean to make it out to be. We've all had my Fairmont build, I've had many people, why don't you just put this on? I'm like, that was never part of the plan. It's not part of the budget. Like, so I get it. I totally get it.
Well, see, I talk about money in that aspect as well, but if I scoot out of the way here, you'll see this very nice seat in the back. These seats are not cheap. Like, they're probably, I think I spent like $1,300 on 2 of those seats. Is it stupid? Yes, but I wanted those specific seats. Sure, I could have spent the same money and went and put a Holly on the truck, but that's not the point.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you're building, whether you're building a SEMA style show car or show truck, or you're building a Rat 10. Everyone's going to tell you what you should have done with it, right? Well, guess what? I didn't build it for you. I built it for me on my budget, not yours.
Oh yeah.
So don't be telling me what I should have done. I know a lot of things I should have done. I should have done a lot of things right. I should have done a lot of things better. I should have put gas in a lot of things, because I get a lot heckled for that quite a bit. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I think we all, we all can look back at our projects and look at things that we should have done. But guess what? It is what it is.
It is.
Well, I also think, when you kind of poked fun at your seats, we all have something like everybody. When I say budget build on my end, it's for the same exact reasons you say, Alex. It's like I want to like splurge on something here or there. Like I don't want everything to be the dirt cheap, most bottom of the barrel thing I can get my hands on used part. Like, but you gotta like in order to get the special something here or there. Like I mean, my Fairmont, the one trick pony on it was I put GT40P heads on, just the otherwise bone stock, low compression 1978 302. Like, if just for like bang for your buck, I was like, I'm not gonna like I'm not throwing nitrous on. I'm not gonna put a blower on. Like we'll do heads. We'll do a head swap. We'll do a top end rebuild. We'll just see what happens. It was an experiment among other things. But I scrimped along the way for a bunch of other categories so that I could do that one big thing. And yeah. So I get it. I totally get it. Well, Jason, we'll start winding this down, and I guess we'll just do before we close it out, just real quickly go around the horn and kind of talk about upcoming content, kind of peek behind the curtains for each of our channels. So why don't you kick us off and take us around the panel here?
Yeah, sure. So you guys know that we finally got the Monaco running in the last video, and actually this week we actually got it driving around the yard at the shop. So we don't have any brakes on it currently. That's kind of this weekend's project. Is we've learned that we've got some brake issues after sitting for 36 years. You're bound to have a few issues like that. But the next video coming out on that car is actually paint correction, and it was probably one of the most satisfying videos I think I've ever done in the 4 years I've been doing YouTube. So you guys, I hope you'll tune into it. It's taking that old chalky white paint and making it look like it was, painted yesterday. So I hope you guys tune into that. Alex, is there something that we can share with the group that is coming up on Rat 10 that you might want to share? Let them in on the secret.
Well, I mean, I've been stuck in the same rut for the past, it feels like a month, which is the interior. Hopefully by the end of next week, the interior will be done and I can move into finishing the engine bay because there's not a lot left, and then rear brake line. And I can, take it for its first drive, which is going to be up and down the driveway because we have snow all over the place. So it's not going very far, but it's getting there. Like within the next, hopefully, month. I'd like to say I've said deadlines before and I missed them all because I'm just a piece of garbage. But
well, speaking of missing deadlines, that's a great segue into my upcoming content because we're still relying on the 5-minute Fridays to get you guys some regular content as of right now. I still have in the editing can the cinematic before and after video for Project Lit Fairmont, taking it from its untouched state to where it ended up. So that should be due out Wednesday, hopefully, if we find some time this weekend to edit that up. I've got all the clips chopped up and somewhat organized, but I need to put that extra finishing touch on it. So I want to hit the mark on that one. I don't just want to put it out. So that's what's coming up on Straight SixFan. But Alex, just wanted to tell you thanks for spending part of your Thursday night here with us. We really appreciate it. Your advice, your reflections, and everything you've kind of learned along the way. But so Jason, I'll turn it over to you to close this out, but feel free to obviously let Alex have some parting shots at us.
Yeah, for sure. Mopar Den sent in a $2 super chat, a few bucks for the most hated two barrel on YouTube, and I'm sure I know exactly where that was directed. But yeah, before we do shut down for the evening, Alex, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, once the world starts getting a little better, I'd love to meet up and actually do some stuff with some of you guys. It'd be nice to actually see people in person because I've been cooped up for too damn long.
Amen to that. I think we all have a little bit of frustration setting in after 2 years, but nevertheless, we swore we wouldn't go into any of that tonight. Thanks again, guys, for being a part of the CarrGuy and SixFan show this Thursday evening. Keep in mind, next week it's back on my channel, and we do have another guest next week. Hope you can tune into that, where we'll be highlighting Calvin, who is Nivlak 57.
Or is it Patina Pit Stop next?
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
I'm jumping the gun again here. Sorry. Patina Pit Stop. He was in the chat earlier. So Casey's going to be on with me and Grant next week, so I hope you guys can tune into that. Thanks so much, guys, for being here. Thanks, Alex, for being a part of the show tonight. And real great conversations, and we'll be sure to make some time that if I'm ever out your way and vice versa, that we can see if we can put a few videos together helping each other out. All right, guys, that's it for the CarrGuy and SixFan show for this Thursday evening. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. We'll see you guys next week.